Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his massive ship and looked out at the stars. His blue skin caught the light from the control panels around him. The Eternal Dominion was the largest ship in the Zephyrian fleet, and it had never lost a battle. For 3,000 years, his people had ruled the galaxy with ships like this one. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of the energy systems. Kethvar walked to the main display screen and watched the holographic map of their latest conquest. Another star system had fallen to their power. The red dots on the map showed worlds that now belonged to the Zephyrian Empire. There were thousands of them. "Admiral," said Commander Vextol, his second in command, "the Altarian homeworld has surrendered. They offer no resistance." Kethver nodded. "It was always the same. Species would fight for a few days, maybe weeks, then realize they could not win. The Zephyrians had technology that seemed like magic to other races. Their ships could take energy from stars and turn it into weapons. No one had ever found a way to stop them. The Altarians had been different from most species they conquered. They had actually put up a good fight for almost a month. Their ships used strange crystal-based weapons that fired beams of concentrated light. For a moment, Kethver had thought they might be interesting opponents. But in the end, they were. Just another race that could not match Zephyrian power. "Send the occupation forces," Kethver ordered. "Standard protocols. Any resistance will be met with complete destruction." The Zephyrian Empire had a simple way of dealing with new worlds. They would arrive in massive fleets, demonstrate their power, and give the local population one chance to surrender. Those who accepted would become part of the Empire. Those who refused would be destroyed completely. Kethver remembered his first battle 40 years ago. He had been a young officer on a small warship, part of a fleet attacking the Corvin system. The Corvins had tried to fight back with nuclear weapons and plasma cannons. Their most powerful weapons had barely scratched the Zephyrian shields. Within hours, their entire fleet was space dust. That was how it always went. The Zephyrians would arrive, the local forces would try their best weapons, and then they would die. Some species lasted longer than others, but the result was always the same. The galaxy belonged to the Zephyrian Empire. The door to the bridge opened, and Science Officer Meldar entered. She carried a datapad with new information from their scouts. Her green eyes showed excitement, which was unusual for someone in her position. "Admiral, we have discovered something interesting," she said. "Our long-range scouts have found a new species in the Outer Rim territories. They call themselves humans." Kethver turned from the display. New species were always interesting, at least for a short time. "Tell me about them." Meldar activated her datapad and showed him a three-dimensional image of a human. The creature was bipedal, with pink skin and hair on its head. It looked relatively primitive compared to most species they had encountered. "They are from a world called Earth," she continued. "They have been expanding into space for about 50 years. So far, they have established colonies on 12 worlds in this sector. What is their technology level?" Kethver asked. "Primitive," Meldar replied. "They use chemical rockets and basic fusion power. Their weapons are mostly kinetic projectiles and simple energy beams. Nothing that would pose any threat to our forces." Kethver looked at the image again. The human seemed so ordinary, so unremarkable. Most species they conquered had at least some interesting technology or unique abilities. The humans appeared to have nothing special about them at all. "How many of them are there?" he asked. "Their homeworld has about 8 billion individuals," Meldar said. "The colonies have perhaps 2 million total. They reproduce quickly, but do not seem to have any advanced population control methods. Military strength? Minimal. They have a few hundred ships, mostly used for exploration and transport. Their largest vessels are about 1/10 the size of our smallest warships. Their weapons could not penetrate our shields even if they fired continuously for days. Kethver walked back to his command chair and sat down. The humans sounded like they would be one of the easier conquests. Some species, like the Altarians, at least had interesting technology that could be studied after their defeat. The humans seemed to have nothing worth taking except their worlds. What is the strategic value of their territory? He asked. High, Meldar responded immediately. Their colonies are located along several important trade routes. Controlling those systems would give us access to 3 new sectors and cut off the Corvin rebels from their supply lines. That was more interesting. The Corvin rebellion had been a minor annoyance for the past 5 years. A small group of survivors from their conquest had been hiding in the outer territories, launching hit-and-run attacks on Zephyrian supply ships. They were not a serious threat, but they were embarrassing. If taking human territory would help end that problem, it might be worth the effort. Prepare a standard conquest fleet, Kethver ordered. 3 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers, and support vessels. We will deal with these humans quickly and move on to more important matters. Yes, Admiral, Meldar said. Should I prepare the standard surrender ultimatum? No need, Kethvar replied. A species this primitive will not understand complex negotiations. We will simply destroy one of their colonies as a demonstration. The rest will surrender immediately. This was the standard approach for dealing with very primitive species. The Zephyrians had learned over the centuries that some races were too simple to understand diplomatic concepts. For them, a simple demonstration of power was more effective than words. Commander Vexto stepped forward. Admiral, should we bring extra science vessels? If their technology is so primitive, there may not be much worth studying. Kethver considered this. Usually, they would bring teams of scientists to examine conquered technology for anything useful. But the humans seemed to have nothing advanced enough to be worth the effort. 1 science vessel will be enough, he decided. This should be a simple operation. The bridge crew began preparing orders for the fleet. Ships would need to be loaded with supplies, weapons charged, and crews briefed on the mission. It would take several days to organize everything, but there was no rush. The humans were not going anywhere. Kethver looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, on 12 small worlds, millions of humans were going about their daily lives. They had no idea that their entire civilization was about to end. In a few weeks, they would either be part of the Zephyrian Empire, or they would be dead. He felt no emotion about this. It was simply how the galaxy worked. Strong species survived and expanded. Weak species became part of something larger, or disappeared entirely. The humans were clearly weak, so their fate was already decided. The Admiral walked to his private quarters to rest before the mission began. Tomorrow, they would begin the journey to human space. It would probably be over before he had time to become bored. He did not know that he was about to encounter something completely different from anything the Zephyrian Empire had ever faced. The humans were indeed primitive in many ways, but they had something that would change everything. They had a completely different way of thinking about war. Commander Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency alarm started ringing throughout the UES Defiant. He put down his cup and ran to the bridge, where the crew was already at their stations. The main screen showed a priority. Message from Earth Command. What do we have? Jake asked as he took his command chair. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark looked up from his tactical station. Distress signal from Kepler 442b, sir. It came in about 10 minutes ago. The message is badly damaged, but we managed to clean up most of it. Jake had visited Kepler 442b 2 years ago during a routine inspection tour. It was a peaceful farming colony with about 50,000 people. They grew food crops that were shipped to other human worlds throughout the sector. The colonists were mostly families who wanted a quiet life away from the crowded cities of Earth. "Play the message," Jake ordered. The speakers crackled with static, then a woman's voice came through clearly. She sounded terrified. "This is Governor Helen Price on Kepler 442b. We are under attack by unknown alien vessels. They appeared without warning and began firing on our cities. Our defenses are completely useless against their weapons. The ships are crystalline, unlike anything we have ever seen. They are destroying everything. Please send help immediately." The message cut off abruptly. Jake stared at the screen for a moment, processing what he had just heard. In 50 years of human space exploration, they had never encountered hostile aliens. There had been rumors of other intelligent species in distant parts of the galaxy, but nothing confirmed. "How long ago was this sent?" Jake asked. 18 hours, sir," said Communications Officer Beth Taylor. "It took that long to reach us through the relay network." Jake did quick math in his head. The Defiant was 3 days away from Kepler 442b at maximum speed. If the attack had started 18 hours ago, it might already be over, but they had to try. "Set course for Kepler 442b, maximum speed," he ordered, "and send a message to Earth Command. They need to know about this immediately." Chief Engineer Pete Williams spoke up from his station. "Sir, our quantum drive is still experimental. Running it at maximum power for 3 days straight could damage the engines." "Do it anyway," Jake said. "If there are survivors, they need help now." The Defiant turned toward the Kepler system and jumped into quantum space. Jake spent the next 3 days studying everything they knew about the colony. The people there were mostly farmers and their families, with a small security force armed with basic weapons. They had no military ships and no heavy defenses. If they were really under attack by advanced aliens, they would have no chance. Jake had served in the Earth Navy for 15 years, but he had never been in a real battle. Human ships were designed for exploration and peaceful contact with other species. They had weapons, but they were mostly intended for dealing with pirates or asteroid mining accidents. During the journey, the crew tried to figure out what kind of aliens they might be facing. Dr. Amanda Wells, the ship's science officer, had studied theoretical xenobiology for years. She had written papers about what alien technology might look like, but she had never expected to encounter it in real life. If they have crystalline ships, they might use some kind of energy-based technology, she told Jake during a briefing. Crystal structures are very good at focusing and directing energy beams. What kind of weapons would they have? Jake asked. Hard to say without more information. But if they can destroy a human colony quickly, they must be far more advanced than we are. When the Defiant finally arrived at Kepler 442b, Jake knew immediately that they were too late. The planet's surface was covered with smoke and fires. The orbital stations were gone, reduced to scattered debris floating in space. The cities that had once housed 50,000 people were now just craters in the ground. Life signs? Jake asked quietly. Beth Taylor worked at her station for several minutes before responding. I'm detecting some readings from underground. It looks like a few hundred survivors in the emergency shelters. Jake felt a mixture of relief and horror. A few hundred survivors out of 50,000 people meant that almost everyone was dead, but at least some had lived through the attack. Take Use down to the main shelter, he ordered. The Defiant landed near the ruins of New Portland, the colony's capital city. Jake led a team of Marines to the underground shelter, where they found 300 terrified survivors. Most were injured, and all of them looked like they had seen something terrible. Dr. Amanda Wells was among the survivors. She was the colony's chief scientist and she had managed to record detailed scans of the attacking ships before the surface stations were destroyed. When she saw Jake, she ran to him with tears in her eyes. "Commander Morrison," she said, "thank God you're here. We thought everyone in the galaxy was dead." Jake helped her to a chair and gave her some water. "What happened here, Amanda? Tell me everything." Amanda's hands shook as she activated her data pad. They came out of nowhere. 12 ships, all made of some kind of blue crystal. They didn't try to communicate or make demands. They just started firing. The data pad showed recordings of the attack. Jake watched in horror as beams of pure energy struck the colony's buildings. The weapons seemed to draw power from the system's sun, getting stronger as they fired. Human defensive systems were useless against them. Their shields absorbed everything we shot at them, Amanda continued. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, even nuclear missiles. Nothing could get through. It was like they were feeding on our attacks. Jake studied the recordings carefully. The alien ships moved with impossible grace, as if they were not affected by normal physics. Their weapons appeared to be some kind of concentrated stellar energy that could melt through any material. "How long did the attack last?" he asked. 6 hours, Amanda replied. They destroyed every building, every vehicle, every piece of technology on the surface. Then they just left. I don't think they even landed. They killed 47,000 people and never set foot on the planet. Jake felt anger building in his chest. These aliens had committed genocide against innocent civilians. They had destroyed families, children, people who had never hurt anyone in their lives. Did they say anything? Any kind of message or ultimatum? Nothing. Amanda said, "They just killed everyone and left. But Commander, I managed to track their course before our sensors were destroyed. They're heading toward the Centauri colonies." Jake's blood ran cold. The Centauri system had 12 colonies with a total population of 2 million people. If these aliens attacked there with the same methods they had used here, it would be the greatest disaster in human history. How long until they reach Centauri? He asked. Amanda checked her calculations. About a week, maybe less if they can travel faster than we think. Jake made a decision that would change his life forever. "We're going after them." Lieutenant Commander Clark looked shocked. "Sir, we don't have the firepower to fight ships like that. We should return to Earth and report what we've found." "There's no time," Jake said. "Even if we could get word to Earth Command, they couldn't organize a defense force in time. 2 million people are going to die unless we stop these aliens now." He turned to address the entire crew over the ship's communication system. "This is the captain. We have a choice to make. We can return to Earth and report what we've seen, or we can pursue the alien fleet and try to stop them from destroying more colonies. I won't lie to you. If we go after them, we'll probably die. But if we don't, millions of innocent people will die instead." The crew voted unanimously to pursue the alien fleet. Jake was proud of them, but he also knew he was leading them to their deaths. The aliens had technology that was centuries ahead of anything humans possessed. The Defiant was just one ship against a fleet of 12 advanced warships. But they had to try. Human space was vast, with dozens of colonies and billions of people. If these aliens were allowed to continue their attacks, human civilization might not survive. Jake ordered the ship to follow the alien fleet's trajectory. They would catch up with them in about 4 days, probably just before they reached the Centauri system. That would give Jake time to study the enemy and maybe find some weakness in their technology. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to discover something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Admiral Kethvar stood in the command center of the Eternal Dominion and studied the star charts with satisfaction. The human colony had been destroyed exactly as planned. His fleet had demonstrated their power, and now they were heading toward the next target. Intelligence reports showed that the Centauri system contained 12 human worlds with millions of inhabitants. "Admiral," said Commander Vextall, approaching with a datapad, "our sensors have detected a human ship following us. It appears to be a military vessel." Kethver turned to look at the tactical display. A single red dot showed the position of the human ship, about 2 days behind his fleet. He was surprised that the humans had responded so quickly, but he was not concerned. One primitive ship against his battle fleet was not a threat. "What type of vessel?" he asked. "Unknown class, but it appears to be their largest military ship. Our scouts estimate it carries about 300 crew members and has basic defensive systems." Kethver nodded. The humans were braver than he had expected. Most species would have retreated after seeing the destruction of one of their colonies. But courage without power was useless. "They are probably coming to negotiate," he said. "Some species try to bargain for the lives of their people after seeing our strength." "Should we destroy them immediately?" Vextall asked. "No," Kethver replied after thinking for a moment. "This could be an opportunity. If we can capture some humans alive, we might learn more about their technology and military capabilities. It would make the conquest of their remaining worlds more efficient." The Admiral walked to the navigation station and studied the star charts. Between his fleet and the Centauri system was a binary star system called Zarian. It contained 2 large suns orbiting close to each other, creating an intense energy field that would boost his ship's power systems. "Set course for the Zarian system," he ordered. "We will wait for the human ship there." The Zarian system was perfect for what he had in mind. The twin suns would provide unlimited energy for his weapons, while the intense radiation would interfere with primitive sensors. The humans would be blind and helpless while his ships operated at maximum efficiency. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Defiant, Jake Morrison was pushing his ship to its limits. The experimental quantum drive was running at dangerous power levels, but they were slowly gaining on the alien fleet. Chief Engineer Pete Williams had warned him that the engines might not survive much longer, but Jake had no choice. "Distance to target?" he asked. "About 36 hours at current speed," Ryan Clark replied from the tactical station. "But sir, they've changed course. They're heading toward the Zarian system instead of continuing toward Centauri." Jake studied the navigation display. The Zarian system was well known to human explorers because of its unusual binary star configuration. The 2 suns created dangerous radiation levels that made it impossible for most ships to operate safely in the inner system. Why would they go there? He wondered aloud. Dr. Amanda Wells, who had insisted on coming with them from the destroyed colony, looked up from her analysis of the alien technology. If their ships really do draw power from stellar energy, the Zarian system would be ideal for them. The twin suns would give them almost unlimited power. Jake realized that the aliens were not running away. They were choosing the battlefield. In the Zarian system, they would be at maximum strength while his ship would be struggling to survive the radiation. "It's a trap," he said. "Should we change course?" Ryan asked. "We could try to intercept them after they leave the system." Jake considered this option. It would be safer to avoid the Zarian system and wait for the aliens to come out. But that would give them time to attack the Centauri colonies first. Millions of people would die while he played it safe. "No," he decided, "we go in. If we're going to stop them, it has to be now." The crew spent the rest of the journey preparing for what they all knew would be their final battle. Pete Williams worked to modify the ship's shields to better handle the radiation from the twin suns. Beth Taylor prepared emergency communication buoys that would carry news of the battle back to Earth, even if the Defiant was destroyed. Dr. Amanda Wells had been studying the recordings from the colony attack continuously. She had noticed something. interesting about the alien weapons, but she needed more time to understand what it meant. Their energy beams are incredibly powerful, she told Jake during a briefing, but they seem to be purely energy-based. I haven't seen any indication that they use kinetic weapons. What does that mean? Jake asked. It might mean they've specialized so much in energy warfare that they don't have defenses against physical attacks. Their shields absorb energy, but they might not be designed to stop solid projectiles. Jake felt a spark of hope. The Defiant's main weapons were kinetic railguns that fired dense metal projectiles at high speed. If Amanda was right, those weapons might be able to penetrate the alien shields. How confident are you about this theory? He asked. Amanda hesitated. Not very. I'm basing it on limited data from a single battle, but it's the only weakness I can find in their technology. Jake made another difficult decision. He ordered Pete Williams to modify the ship's weapon systems, concentrating all power into the kinetic railguns. If Amanda was wrong, they would die even faster than expected. But if she was right, they might have a chance. The Defiant emerged from quantum space, directly between the two suns of the Zarian system. Jake immediately saw the alien fleet waiting for them in a perfect formation. 12 crystalline ships surrounded his vessel, their hulls glowing with absorbed stellar energy. Radiation levels are extreme, Pete reported. Shields are holding, but we can't stay here long. Jake looked at the tactical display. The alien ships were positioning themselves to fire from all directions at once. It was exactly what he had expected them to do. All stop, he ordered. Let them think we're helpless. The first alien attack came within minutes. 12 beams of concentrated stellar energy struck the Defiant simultaneously. The ship's shields collapsed instantly. Armor plating melted away, and entire sections of the hull were vaporized. Emergency alarms rang throughout the ship as systems failed and fires broke out. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, Ryan reported. We're losing atmosphere, and half our power systems are down. Jake felt the ship shudder under the assault. The alien weapons were even more powerful than he had expected. But this was part of his plan. He needed the aliens to think they had won. Damage report, he called out. Engines offline, weapons offline, life support failing, Pete replied. We're dead in space. On the alien flagship, Admiral Kethvar watched the human ship drift helplessly after the first attack. Smoke poured from its hull, and there were no signs of life from its crew. The battle had lasted less than a minute. Scan for survivors, he ordered. I want to capture some of them alive. The Zephyrian ships moved closer to examine their defeated enemy. Kethvar felt the familiar satisfaction of another easy victory. The humans had shown courage by coming here, but courage meant nothing against superior technology. He did not know that the apparently dead human ship was actually very much alive. Jake Morrison had equipped his vessel with experimental stealth technology that could simulate battle damage while keeping the ship's essential systems operational. The Defiant looked destroyed, but it was actually preparing to strike back. Are they close enough? Jake whispered to his crew. Ryan Clark checked his instruments. All 12 ships are within optimal range. Their shields are down because they think we're dead. Jake took a deep breath. Everything depended on the next few seconds. If Amanda's theory was wrong, his crew would die for nothing. But if she was? Right, they might just change the course of galactic history. Fire everything, he ordered. The Defiant's hidden weapon systems came online instantly. 8 kinetic railguns fired simultaneously, launching dense metal projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The projectiles were invisible to energy-based sensors and moved too fast for visual tracking. The first alien ship exploded as a railgun slug punched through its hull and detonated its power core. The second ship lost its entire front section to another projectile. Within seconds, 8 of the 12 alien vessels were either destroyed or crippled. Admiral Kethvar stared in shock at his tactical display. Half his fleet had been destroyed in an instant by weapons he could not even detect. The humans had somehow hidden their true capabilities and lured his ships into a trap. "Impossible," he whispered. "How did they do that?" The surviving alien. Ships tried to return fire, but their formation was broken and their crews were panicking. The Defiant continued to fire its railguns, picking off the remaining ships one by one. In less than 2 minutes, 11 of the 12 alien vessels were destroyed. Only Admiral Kethvar's flagship remained, crippled and drifting. The Eternal Dominion's proud blue hull was scarred and broken, its energy systems failing. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Zephyrian fleet had been defeated. Jake Morrison opened a communication channel to the surviving alien ship. His message was simple and direct. "This is Commander Morrison of the United Earth Navy. You have attacked human colonies and murdered innocent people. Surrender now or be destroyed." Admiral Kethvar looked around his damaged bridge. His crew was dead or dying, his ship was powerless, and his fleet was. The moment before Jake Morrison gave the order to fire, time seemed to slow down on the bridge of the UEC Defiant. His crew sat at their stations, waiting for the command that would either save humanity or get them all killed. The alien ships floated around them like predators examining dead prey, completely unaware of the trap they had fallen into. Jake had spent 3 days planning this moment. The idea had come to him during the long journey to the Xerion system when Dr. Amanda Wells had made her observation about the aliens' energy-based technology. If they had focused entirely on energy weapons and defenses, they might have overlooked the simple physics of kinetic warfare. Chief Engineer Pete Williams had worked miracles to make the plan possible. The Defiant's stealth systems were never designed to simulate battle damage, but Pete had found a way to redirect power flow so that the ship would appear dead to energy-based sensors, while keeping the weapons and life support systems fully operational. "The key is making them think we're helpless," Jake had explained to his crew. "If they believe we're destroyed, they'll come close to examine the wreckage. That's when we strike." The hardest part had been convincing his people to let the aliens shoot first. Everyone on the bridge knew that the enemy weapons were powerful enough to destroy their ship with a single hit. But the plan required them to take that hit and survive it. Pete had modified the ship's hull in ways that would have made Earth engineers cry. He had created false bulkheads that would collapse dramatically when hit, making it look like entire. Sections of the ship had been destroyed. Emergency systems were rigged to produce smoke and sparks on command. Even the crew had practiced pretending to be dead or injured. "Remember," Jake had told them, "we only get one chance at this. If they realize we're still alive before we fire, we're all dead." When the alien energy beams hit the Defiant, the impact was worse than anyone had expected. Even with all their preparations, the ship was nearly destroyed for real. The fake damage. Systems worked perfectly, but the real damage was almost as bad. Hull plates melted, systems overloaded, and the ship's structure groaned under the assault. Dr. Amanda Wells had been thrown from her chair when the first beam hit. She pulled herself back up and checked her instruments, amazed to find that the ship's core systems were still functional. The stealth modifications had worked, but barely. "Hull temperature is at critical levels," she reported quietly. "The next hit will finish us for real." Jake nodded grimly. They had survived the first attack, but they could not take another one. Everything depended on the aliens coming close enough for the railguns to be effective. On the alien flagship, Admiral Kethvar was silent for a long moment. The human commander's tone was different from what he had expected. Most species begged for mercy or tried to negotiate when they were defeated. This human sounded like he was conducting a military interrogation. Your colonies are in territory. That belongs to the Empire, Kethver finally replied. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. Every world, every star system belongs to us by right of conquest. Not anymore, Jake said simply. Human space is now under the protection of Earth. Any further attacks on our people will result in total war. The alien admiral laughed bitterly. You destroyed one fleet with a surprise attack. Do you really think that makes you our equals? The Empire has thousands of ships and millions of warriors. We will crush you completely. Jake had expected this response. The aliens clearly believed that their defeat was just a lucky accident, not a sign that human technology could match theirs. That misconception might be useful. Maybe, Jake admitted. But every ship you send against us will face the same fate. As yours, we know how your technology works now, and we know how to defeat it. The question is, how many of your people are you willing to sacrifice? Dr. Amanda Wells was monitoring the conversation while continuing to scan the alien ship. She had discovered something interesting about their technology that might be important later. Jake, she said quietly, their ship's power systems are based on crystalline matrices that channel stellar energy. If we could get a sample of that crystal, our scientists might be able to develop new technologies. Jake nodded. The alien ship was disabled but not destroyed. If they could capture it intact, Earth scientists might learn enough to give humanity a real advantage in any future conflicts. Admiral Kethver, Jake said, I'm prepared to offer you terms. Surrender your ship and crew, and I'll guarantee that you'll be treated according to the laws of war. Refuse, and I'll destroy your ship and everyone on it. What makes you think I would trust the word a primitive human? Kethver replied. Because I've already proven that humans keep their promises, Jake answered. I promised that any attacks on our colonies would be met with force. Your fleet is evidence that I keep my word. The alien admiral considered this. His ship was crippled, his crew was dying, and he had no way to call for help. The humans had demonstrated that they could destroy his vessel whenever they chose. But surrendering to a primitive species would be the ultimate humiliation. If I surrender, he asked, what happens to my crew? They'll be held as prisoners of war until this conflict is resolved, Jake replied. They'll be treated with dignity and given medical care. Kethver made his decision. I accept your terms, Commander Morrison. But understand this. The Empire will not forget what happened here. They will send more ships, and they will be prepared. For your tactics, let them come, Jake said. Humanity is ready. The next few hours were spent transferring the alien crew to the Defiance holding areas. Most of them were injured and needed medical attention, which Dr. Amanda Wells and her team provided. Jake was careful to treat the prisoners well, knowing that word of their treatment would eventually reach the alien Empire as the survivors were brought aboard. Jake learned more about the enemy they were facing. The Zephyrian Empire controlled thousands of star systems and had been the dominant power in the galaxy for millennia. They had conquered dozens of intelligent species and had never faced serious resistance. Admiral Kethver proved to be surprisingly cooperative during his interrogation. Perhaps he was impressed by the way his crew was being treated, or perhaps he realized that the humans might be the galaxy's best hope for ending his Empire's reign of terror. The Empire's strength comes from fear, he explained to Jake. Most species surrender without fighting because they believe we are invincible. But you have proven that we can be defeated. Word of this battle will spread, and other worlds will begin to resist. Jake understood the implications. Humanity had not just won a single battle. They had started a revolution that might reshape the entire galaxy. But that also meant they had made enemies of one of the most powerful civilizations in known space. How? Long before the Empire sends reinforcements? Jake asked. Months, Perhaps a year, Kethver replied. It will take time for them to understand what happened here and develop new tactics. But when they come, they will bring overwhelming force. Jake nodded grimly. Humanity had bought themselves some time, but they would need to use it wisely. Earth's military would need to prepare for a war unlike anything they had ever imagined. Defiant began its journey back to human space, carrying both the alien prisoners and detailed records of the battle. The crew worked to repair the damage from the enemy attack while Pete Williams studied the captured alien technology. Their power systems are incredible, Pete reported to Jake. If we could learn to build ships like this, we'd be able to match them in space combat. But Jake knew that humanity's real advantage was not in copying alien technology. It was in thinking differently about warfare itself. The Zephyrians had become so focused on energy-based combat that they had forgotten the simple effectiveness of kinetic weapons. Keep studying their systems, Jake ordered. But remember, our strength comes from being different, not from being the same. As the Defiant traveled through quantum space toward Earth, Jake composed his report for the Admiralty. He knew that his actions had committed humanity to a war that might determine the fate of the galaxy. But he also knew that they had no choice. The aliens had made their intentions clear when they destroyed the colony. The humans had proven that. They could fight back, but the real test was yet to come. The Zephyrian Empire would not make the same mistakes twice. When they returned, they would be prepared for human tactics and human weapons. But Jake had faith in his species. Humans had always been at their best when facing impossible odds. They had survived ice ages, world wars, and the challenges of space exploration. Now they would face their greatest test yet, a war for the freedom of the galaxy itself. The age of easy conquest was over. The humans had seen to that. VAR was studying the wreckage of the human ship with professional interest. The Eternal Dominions. Sensors showed no signs of life from the vessel, but something about the destruction pattern seemed strange to him. Move closer, he ordered. I want to examine their technology. Commander Vextol looked concerned. Admiral, shouldn't we maintain a safe distance? Some species have been known to use suicide attacks. These humans are too primitive for such tactics, Kethfor replied confidently. Besides, their ship is clearly dead. Look at the damage pattern. The Zephyrian ships closed in around the Defiant, their crews eager to see. The news of Admiral Kethfor's defeat reached the Zephyrian homeworld 3 weeks after the battle at Zarian. Emperor Zarthul read the report in his crystal palace, surrounded by advisors who had never experienced military failure in their long lives. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years without a single major defeat, and now a primitive human ship had destroyed an entire fleet. This is impossible, declared War Minister Kalanoth, his blue skin darkening with anger. Humans are a primitive species with basic technology. How could they defeat our most advanced warships? Emperor Zarthul studied the detailed battle analysis that had been transmitted from Admiral Kethver's captured flagship. The humans had used kinetic weapons, physical projectiles that could not be absorbed by energy shields. It was such a simple concept that no Zephyrian military planner had considered defending against it. Sometimes the most primitive solutions are the most effective, the Emperor said quietly. We have become so focused on energy-based warfare that we forgot about other possibilities. Science advisor Melkoth stepped forward with additional data. My lord, our analysis shows that human technology is indeed primitive in most areas. But they have developed kinetic weapons to an advanced level. Their projectiles move at significant fractions of light speed and carry enormous destructive power. The Emperor walked to his throne and sat down heavily. The palace around him was built from the same crystalline materials as their starships, designed to channel and focus energy. Everything about Zephyrian civilization was based on their mastery of energy manipulation. The idea that simple physical weapons could defeat them was deeply troubling. "What is the status of the human colonies?" he asked. "Unchanged, my lord," War Minister Kellenoth replied. "They continue to expand and establish new settlements. Intelligence reports suggest they are also building new warships, possibly based on knowledge gained from the captured fleet." Emperor Zarthul considered his options. The traditional response would be to send a much larger fleet to crush the humans completely. But that approach assumed that the humans' victory had been a lucky accident. What if it was not? "Recall all fleets from the outer territories," he ordered. "We need time to develop new strategies and technologies." The order sent shockwaves throughout the Empire. For the first time in centuries, Zephyrian forces were retreating instead of advancing. Species that had lived under imperial rule for generations began to whisper about the humans, who had achieved the impossible. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Patricia Coleman was facing the biggest challenge of her career: the arrival of the UES. Defiant with its alien prisoners and captured technology, had changed everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy, and they had accidentally started a war with one of its most powerful civilizations. "We need to be realistic about our situation," she told the Emergency Council of Earth's military leaders. "We won one battle through surprise and clever tactics, but the enemy has thousands of ships and resources we can barely imagine." Jake Morrison stood before the council, still wearing his battle-damaged uniform. He had become famous overnight as the man who defeated the aliens, but he knew better than anyone how close they had come to total defeat. "The Zephyrians are powerful, but they're not invincible," he told the council. "Their entire military doctrine is based on energy weapons and shields. They've never faced kinetic warfare before, and it will take them time to adapt." Dr. Amanda Wells had spent weeks studying the captured alien technology with Earth's best scientists. Her findings were both encouraging and terrifying. "Their ships are incredibly advanced," she reported. "Their power systems can draw energy directly from stars, and their shields can absorb almost any energy-based attack. But they have no defense against physical projectiles." "How long before they develop such defenses?" Admiral Coleman asked. "Unknown," Amanda replied. "But we have to assume they're working on the problem right now. Our advantage is temporary." The council spent hours debating Earth's options. Some members wanted to try negotiating with the Empire, hoping to avoid a larger war. Others argued for immediate military expansion, building as many ships as possible before the aliens returned. Jake listened to the debates with growing frustration. "We're missing the point," he finally said. "This isn't just about us anymore. The Zephyrian Empire has been conquering and enslaving species for thousands of years. Our victory has shown the galaxy that they can be defeated." Admiral Coleman understood what he meant. Intelligence reports from human colonies throughout the galaxy told of alien species that had lived under Zephyrian rule for centuries. Many of them were now quietly reaching out to human representatives, asking about the possibility of alliance or assistance. "We're being offered the chance to lead a galactic revolution," Jake continued, "but only if we're willing to fight for it." The council voted to authorize a massive military expansion program. New shipyards were constructed throughout human space, and existing vessels were retrofitted with improved kinetic weapons. But more importantly, Earth began reaching out to other species that might be willing to join a coalition against the Empire. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of species sent secret envoys to meet with human representatives. The Altarians, who had fought bravely against the Zephyrians before their conquest, offered to share their crystal-based weapon technology. The Corvin rebels emerged from hiding to coordinate attacks on Imperial supply lines. Admiral Kethfar, now held as a prisoner on Earth, watched these developments with a mixture of admiration and concern. During his interrogations, he had come to respect the humans' determination and strategic thinking. But he also knew how the Empire would respond to organized resistance. "You do not understand what you are starting," he warned Jake during one of their conversations. "The Empire has faced rebellions before. They always end the same way, with the complete destruction of the rebel worlds. This time is different," Jake replied. "This time, the rebels have proven they can win. The war that followed would reshape the galaxy. Human ships, supported by allied fleets from dozens of species, began striking at Zephyrian outposts throughout the outer territories. The Empire's response was swift and brutal, but they found themselves fighting an enemy that used tactics they could not predict or counter. The humans had revolutionized space warfare by combining kinetic weapons with unconventional strategies. They would hide among asteroid fields, attack from multiple directions simultaneously, and retreat before the enemy could respond effectively. Their ships were smaller and less powerful than Zephyrian vessels, but they were faster and more maneuverable. More importantly, the humans had given hope to species that had lived under Imperial rule for centuries. Rebellions broke out on dozens of worlds, forcing the Empire to divide its forces to maintain control. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting a war on multiple fronts against enemies who no longer feared their technological superiority. Emperor Zarthal watched his empire begin to crumble and realized that the humans had done more than win a single battle. They had changed the fundamental nature of galactic politics. Fear had been the Empire's greatest weapon, and the humans had destroyed it. "Perhaps it is time for the age of empires to end," he said to his advisors during a private meeting. "The galaxy is changing, and we must change with it or be destroyed." But not all Zephyrians were willing to accept defeat. War Minister Kellenoth began planning a final assault on Earth itself, hoping to end the human threat before it could spread further. He assembled the largest fleet in Imperial history and prepared to destroy humanity's whole world. Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral, received intelligence about the coming attack from Zephyrian defectors who had grown tired of their empires. Cruelty. The final battle would take place in Earth's own solar system, with the fate of both humanity and galactic freedom hanging in the balance. But Jake was no longer the desperate commander of a single ship fighting impossible odds. He now led a coalition fleet of hundreds of vessels from dozens of species, all united by their desire for freedom from Imperial rule. The humans had started something that could not be stopped. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of Zephyrian dominance was ending, and a new era of cooperation between free species was beginning. Humanity had proven that even the most powerful empires could fall when faced with those who refused to surrender their freedom. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter as news of the human victories spread throughout the galaxy. For the first time in 3,000 years, the oppressed had hope and the oppressors had reason to fear. The balance of power had shifted forever, and it would never shift back.